What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And tonight I am once again joined by the Michael Darcy of KC Sports Report to do another video leading up to this Kansas City Chiefs versus Cincinnati Bengals AFC Championship game, a rematch of the 2021 AFC Championship game. Michael, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic, Josh. I'm ready to talk about this game, and hopefully we don't get too upset.
Yeah, for sure. Tonight, I wanted to talk about, for our topic, X factors for this game, because I think those are going to be really important. And by X factors, I mean individual players. I was thinking offense and defense. You and I will pick what we think our X factors are for the offense and defense and how they can help the Kansas City Chiefs win this game and ensure that they can beat the Bengals once and for all. So we'll start with the offense. Michael, I have my pick. I'm really curious to see if we have the same pick for X factor on offense, but I'll go with you first and see who's your X factor on offense for this game.
So the prototypical answer would be Travis Kelce, right? And the best answer I could possibly give would be for like a receiver would be Juju. But I'm going to throw a curveball at you, and I think this is where you might be going. I think the most important offensive player in this game is Orlando Brown Jr.
Really?
I do. Trey Hendrickson had his way with him, not only in last year's AFC Championship game, but even early on this season when they played. I think Orlando Brown Jr.'s ability to protect Patrick Mahomes is going to come down to be the X factor in this game, because if he can't do that and Trey Hendrickson is blowing by him, we're in trouble.
Well, and there's also increased importance placed on Orlando Brown's performance in this game because you don't want Pat taking extra hits considering the injury that's already there.
Exactly. And if you look at it even deeper, let's say Orlando Brown Jr. balls out. Trey Hendrickson can't even touch Patrick Mahomes. He might get $22 million a year this offseason. He might actually get paid.
I mean, it's not too late for Orlando Brown to try and earn as much of that contract that he turned down this past offseason by performing really well in the postseason. That's where players make their money.
Exactly. But I do think that Orlando Brown Jr.'s performance in this game will indicate a lot. And I think that outside of the skill positions, he's my pick. If I have to pick like a receiver or a running back, I think Juju is going to be important because, you know, they're going to double team Travis Kelce, and I still expect him to get his, but we're going to need to see a receiver step up. And I hope that it's Juju because, you know, he could be a very valuable weapon for the Chiefs. And he's kind of been, I don't want to say non-existent, but he really hasn't emerged in the playoffs or even in the last couple of weeks of the regular season.
No, yeah, that's a really good one. Mine is a receiver, but it's not Juju. But I like that you said Juju because he's been kind of quiet lately, and it seemed like he was really catching on in this Chiefs offense until he had the concussion, and then just a couple other things didn't go his way. And they need a big game from him for sure. And he also is someone that has experience playing against the Bengals from all of his years on the Steelers. So there's still guys that are on the Bengals that were there when Juju was on the Steelers. So you'd think he knows this defense pretty well. But my X factor on offense, it's a receiver. It is Kadarius Toney. And Kadarius Toney is my X factor because he was not on this team the last time the Chiefs faced the Bengals. He was not on it last year for the AFC Championship game, and he was not on this team when the Chiefs played the Bengals in the regular season. And Kadarius Toney has been a monster in this offense since he's been here. The numbers will not tell you that. He doesn't have a big stat line from the season, mostly because he was new to the team, and then he had the hamstring injury flare up again. So he hasn't necessarily gotten the opportunity, but every time he's touched the ball, man, that guy has done something magical. And the way he moves, he just moves unlike any other player in the league can. And I think he's an X factor because the Chiefs have to get him the ball in this game. They need production out of the receivers. He was their second leading receiver behind Travis Kelce against the Jaguars, and I think it's just a matter of time before he has a big game. And I don't think the Chiefs maybe necessarily wanted to release their entire Kadarius Toney playbook because they needed him for a game like this where he could just go off. I don't know if you remember, but Kadarius Toney, when he was on the Giants, he didn't do much for the Giants. He was injured a lot there too. But he did have that random game against the Cowboys where he had like 189 yards receiving. And you know what? If Kadarius Toney could have 189 yards receiving in this game, that would be fantastic. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think the Chiefs are going to have a lot of plays drawn up for him in this game, and they're going to need him. And he's one of the only receivers on this team that can get consistent separation. Juju is not really a separation guy. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is not really a separation guy. Sky Moore has shown flashes of getting separation, but he doesn't really have a role in this offense necessarily. So I think Kadarius Toney is the guy, and Patrick Mahomes, in the short time that he's been building this connection with Kadarius Toney, he's shown a lot of trust in him. Like when you talk about like those back shoulder throws, there's only a couple players that Pat Mahomes really trusts with that back shoulder throw. One of them is Juju, and Kadarius Toney is really the only other one that he's thrown that back shoulder pass to. And Kadarius Toney is also another player that is really going to be useful in this one to me because Patrick Mahomes is injured. You're going to need to get the ball out quickly. And when you're getting the ball out quickly, you think of guys like Kadarius Toney and McCole Hardman, who unfortunately I don't think is going to be healthy enough to play in this game, which is why Kadarius Toney's role is even more important because he's a guy that you can get the ball behind the line of scrimmage and he might turn it into a 20-yard gain.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought that you were going to go the Kadarius Toney route because it's a good pick. And, in the Jacksonville game, he did have some plays where he flashed. I do think,
and it's great. That's what leads me to believe that the Chiefs maybe have been saving him for a game like this where they truly need him. They don't want to put a ton on tape for other teams because a lot of his touches have still been behind the line of scrimmage stuff and like short little passes on like third down, which is another thing I really like. He's become a really reliable third down pass catcher, not named Travis Kelce. Because against the Jaguars, there was the play where Chad Henne, it was like the same exact play they ran for Tyreek Hill a couple years ago in the divisional round, but instead it was drawn up for Kadarius Toney, and it got them a first down and short yardage. So, yeah, I just think Kadarius Toney's importance in this game cannot be overstated.
Absolutely. And a guy that, we probably will talk about over the course of the week that I think could show some stuff from last year's AFC Championship game. I think you got to have some production out of Jerick McKinnon. He didn't have a big game in the divisional round, but, I do think that his ability to catch the ball in the backfield, we need that. We're going to need to get, like we've talked about basically in the last couple of videos, like it's so important that Pat gets the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible, whether it's a dump off, whether it's a short slant, like you're just going to have to make sure that he's not holding on to it. And I think that is where McKinnon could really shine in this game.
Well, McKinnon is also very important for this offense too, because he's their best pass protector at running back. And
he is.
He can throw some blocks, man. Like he threw a couple good ones against the Jaguars. And when Pat Mahomes is hobbled like he is, like he's going to need that protection. You might see Jerick McKinnon a lot, maybe not necessarily running the ball or catching passes, but he's going to be back there protecting Mahomes, make sure nobody touches him. Because Isaiah Pacheco, he has trouble picking up blitzes. He has trouble, finding his assignment on those pass blocking downs. But Jerick McKinnon, he is the guy for that.
And that's going to be important because we talked about, for me, Orlando Brown Jr. is going to have to step up. Something that the Bengals do, which I don't know how they do it, they get tremendous pressure with just 3 guys. And it allows them to drop, 8 back into coverage? Like, that's going to be a problem. And I think that, having guys – and keep in mind, the Chiefs' offense looks a little bit different this year than it did in last year's AFC Championship game because they were still, looking for the deep play and didn't have so many, short yardage wide receivers. But I do think that the Chiefs are going to have to surgically cut up that defense and take the short stuff because there's just going to be so many guys in coverage. And I think that maybe running the ball, whether it's McKinnon or Pacheco, is going to be important because you're going to have to make some of those DBs stay honest.
Well, and even further, like I talked about with Juju and MVS, those are not big separation guys. You can stand back there as long as you want with the ball if you're Patrick Mahomes, but that doesn't necessarily mean those guys are going to get open. And it's kind of funny to me because like Chiefs fans all year long complain that this team struggles to beat man coverage and getting separation. But it's like, yeah, that everyone talked about in the offseason when they traded Tyreek Hill and they signed Juju and MVS, how they were maybe shifting philosophies into getting that more bigger, physical, prototypical receiver than your short, shifty, quick guys like Tyreek Hill. And it's like, well, yeah, when you do that, you're sacrificing separation for a guy that maybe can go catch a jump ball. And Patrick Mahomes in this offense, they don't really throw jump balls. That's not their thing. So, and that's why you see guys like Kadarius Toney slide in here, and all of a sudden they're making huge plays, and Patrick Mahomes has a bunch of trust in him because Patrick Mahomes likes to throw to guys that are open. So as any quarterback would. But yeah, do you have any? I mean, you have any more thoughts on that, like your offensive X factor, stuff like that?
Obviously Kelsey is Travis Kelsey. I think that whichever guy that we're asking to step up, it's almost more important for the offense as a unit to just take care of the football. That's really all I can ask. Like if they can take care of the football, like I don't care if Juju has 29 yards and Travis Kelsey has 70 yards, and it doesn't matter. As long as they can take care of the football and score points, we're going to win this game.
Yeah, that and long sustained drives. Running the ball is going to be important for that because you want to be winning the time of possession battle. You want to be chewing up clock if you have a lead in this game, because that was one of their biggest mistakes last year. They just dropped back so many times while the Bengals were dropping 8 into coverage, and they were killing clock and they were having to punt back to the Bengals. And it's like, you have such a big lead in this game. Why are you not running the ball more?
Yeah, and vice versa. Like the Bengals, I think we're going to get to see a heavy dose of Joe Mixon, who didn't play in the first matchup this season. What he did in Buffalo is like, whoa, like the Chiefs are going to have to make sure that their defense is ready to stop that. And I like we were talking about with the offense, like it's important that they run the ball again to keep the DBs honest and just to make sure that not all of the pressure is on Patrick Mahomes. He's already got enough on his plate. You don't have to have him drop back to throw 60 times.
For sure. Defensive X factor, if you're ready to move on to that.
I am, because this actually, when you were talking about X factors, the defense came first, because I think that really the X factor in this game is going to be defense, and it's going to depend on which phase that you want to talk about, because you can look at it two ways. Which person on the defensive line is going to make the biggest impact or has to make the biggest impact? Because last year's AFC Championship game, they couldn't get to Joe Burrow, and we saw how that ended up. So I could maybe say Chris Jones or Frank Clark, because Frank Clark had like 30, 40 snaps and hadn't got a pressure or a sack in last year's game. Like, can't have it. We haven't seen a Chris Jones postseason sack yet. I don't put all of these stats into, like, him not having a sack's not a big deal, but it would be nice if he could finally get there and wrap him up.
For sure.
Honestly, I think that that's important. But I'm really concerned about who is going to be facing Jamar Chase. That's my biggest concern, because the Chiefs, Steve Spagnuolo tried messing around and putting Joshua Williams on him like he thought that was a good idea. If that happens in this game, he's going to go for $150 and 3 touchdowns, and it's going to look like Tyreek Hill against the Buccaneers. You can't do that. Can't do it at all.
It's just it's an inexperienced rookie versus one of the best receivers in the league. It's not a matchup that you should be taking chances on. They messed around with it in the regular season. Okay, fine. Postseason, no. Trent McDuffie. I mean, you know what? Before I go into that, who is your X factor? I'm assuming it was going to be on the defensive line, but I'm not sure. It sounds like you're maybe thinking about a DB.
Because I could also say the linebackers, Willie Gay or Nick Bolton, and their ability to stop the run. That's why it's like, man, like every phase of this defense has somebody that like is going to have to step up.
There's no wrong answer.
Either really, I mean, I could say something stupid like Chris Lamons, but oops. I think, man, who is going to be our?
For those that don't understand, real quick, Chris Lamons, the Chiefs waived him and he got picked up by the Bengals today. But.
Yeah, which, by the way, we talked about it a little bit on my channel. He can't even play in this game. He can't even play till after the Super Bowl. He's still on like waivers, so he's literally just there for his information, and then he's going to get cut. Guaranteed after the game. They don't win, lose, or draw. He's gone after the game. But defensive X factor. I'm going to say Chris Jones. I think Chris Jones and not even in a sack number kind of way. I think that Chris Jones applying pressure, it opens up the entire defensive line. It's why the Chiefs had the second most sacks in the NFL this year. He is going to have to be that guy in this game, because if Chris Jones wreaks havoc up front, that's going to cause some problems. And I think the Chiefs need to force as many problems as possible, because it's kind of a trickle-down effect. If the Chiefs can get to Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase might be open. He might burn at Joshua Williams or a Trent McDuffie, but it's not going to matter because Joe Burrow will be 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage on his ass. So I think it's important that they can get pressure, and that's why I think Chris Jones is going to be the most important X factor for this defense.
That's a good one. That's a really good one, because I think that Chris Jones, along with the entire defensive line, at least the guys that were here last year, Chris Jones, Frank Clark, they have some avenging to do, because they kind of got embarrassed last year. Chris Jones is getting a lot of pressure, but that play where he had Joe Burrow in his grasp and somehow let him go, like that's got to be sticking in his mind even still. I'm sure it's going to be on his mind this week. Like, you had Joe Burrow in your hands on 3rd and 7, and if you sack him, that probably ends the game, and you couldn't do it. And
also, really quickly, if I am the Chiefs defensive line coach, they've changed coaches. I can't remember who it is.
Joe Cullen.
If I'm Joe Cullen, I'm pulling all the defensive line aside and saying, hey guys, late hit, rough in the path, maybe not the worst thing to happen. We'll take the penalty yards. Make Joe Burrow feel uncomfortable early.
Yeah, because damn well the Bengals are going to be doing it from Mahomes. I mean, they're going to be targeting his ankle. I know it sucks to say that, and it sucks to say that players are going to do that and go for his ankle, but guess what? That's what they're going to do. They're trying to take Patrick Mahomes out. You're kidding yourself if you don't think that.
Yeah. And it's not even, I mean, you could argue if it's malicious or not, but like, it's not like it's a fully healthy ankle and it's just like, we're just going to break his ankle. No.
Yeah.
They're just going to hit
But
his
they're trying
ankle.
to knock him down, and they're trying to rattle him.
Yeah. And I want the Chiefs to do the exact same thing. And that's why I think that the defensive line is going to play a very big factor in this game. But one thing that I want to say also is, whether it's Chris Jones against 2 offensive linemen for the Bengals, which, by the way, their offensive line's in shambles. So that's another reason why the defensive line.
It's a very identical position to last year.
Do not fail to take advantage of that. But more importantly, I think that it's important that whether it's the defensive line or the corners and the receivers, I want to see the Chiefs' best on the Bengals' best. Don't screw around and put Joshua Williams on T. Higgins. Just don't do it. There's no reason to do it. We want to win this game. We don't want the Chiefs need to make sure that their best is on the Bengals' best. If they do that, we might not win, but it's better than a what if you have Joshua Williams out there.
Yeah, and I mean, Trent McDuffie, he's not my X factor, but he could easily be one, because you're going to need him to shadow somebody in this game and take them out, whether it's Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. It definitely I would like to see McDuffie on Chase. I know you said something about putting Snead on Chase. I think Snead would probably be a better matchup for T. Higgins, but that's just my opinion, because I think Jamar Chase is a little more quick twitch, and L'Jarius Snead doesn't have great short area quickness. Trent McDuffie does, though. And that's why I really like McDuffie. And I also saw a stat that the Chiefs have not allowed 300 yards passing since Trent McDuffie has been back in the lineup. So that's a positive. That's a confidence booster going into this one if you're the Chiefs secondary. If you're ready to hear my X factor, though.
I am.
I kind of wanted to go with someone on the defensive line, but I mean, like, you already said one, so I don't want to do that. And like, I just feel like the entire defensive line, you could say anyone on the defensive line, it would not be a wrong answer. Anyone on the defense, but we already talked about that. But I mean, pass rush has to step up for sure. Linebackers, yeah, they got to step up. Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon, like, they own this linebacking core. Nick Bolton, he's got to step up in this one. Willie Gay, especially in coverage. I'm going to go with somebody different, though, who I think could be an X factor. You probably didn't think of this one, but I actually thought of this one while you were talking, though. I'm going to go with Brian Cook. Brian Cook has steadily been playing more snaps this postseason. He played a lot versus the Jaguars, was really good in coverage, actually. And if I am the Chiefs and if I am Steve Spagnuolo, I am putting Brian Cook almost down as a linebacker, basically. So you have one more capable in coverage playing at that second level of the defense where I know the Bengals are going to attack. And also Brian Cook, that dude looks like he shoots out of a cannon every time he goes to tackle somebody. I guarantee you he would not hesitate to help in run support and stopping the run. I'm going to go with Brian Cook, man. And I'm just going to say it. I think Brian Cook gets an interception in this game.
Wow, I was not expecting you to go there. It's not a bad pick. I mean, I think it's and that do you think the Chiefs are going to blitz? Because Joe Burrow is very Brady-esque in his ability to get the ball out quick. So is it smart to bring 7 or bring the house?
I think you'll see Steve Spagnuolo send a couple DBs here and there. And I think that's probably the best bet because it's Spags. He's going to blitz. But if I'm going to blitz, not if I'm him, I'm sending DBs. I'm sending L'Jarius Sneed, who's maybe my best defensive back blitzer. Jalen Watson also almost got a sack on Trevor Lawrence against the Jaguars. Yeah, I'm sending my DBs. Brian Cook, another one too. Like I love the way Brian Cook plays, and he's my X factor because I think he's a piece in the secondary that nobody's talking about. A Chiefs passing defense that has really improved down the stretch of the season, and he was really good against the Jaguars, and I have a good feeling about him in this one. And I think if you're the Chiefs and you're looking at this matchup, like you need someone that can kind of play. He's almost kind of a tweener, a linebacker, and a safety at the same time, and you've got to cover better at the second level of the defense. So I would maybe drop Brian Cook down a little bit and have him almost playing as a coverage linebacker.
And hey, the Bengals are famous for dropping so many guys back into coverage. 8. Couldn't hurt for the Chiefs to do the same.
Yeah, and if I'm doing it, and that's what I'm saying, if I'm doing it with Brian Cook. Like, sorry, Nick Bolton, I'm taking you off the field and I'm putting Brian Cook on there because as much as I love Nick Bolton, yeah, he does get picked on in coverage a little bit, and they try to expose that matchup in the middle of the field. The middle of the field has been one of the weakest spots of this Chiefs defense all year long. I'm putting Brian Cook out there instead. And also, Spags, for the love of God, stop taking Willie Gay off the field on third down for Darius Harris. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and what we saw in the last game, I don't think, especially if you blitz, I think that you should blitz early in the series, like first or second down, to make third down uncomfortable, and then you make sure that you have speed on the field, and you also make sure that your best coverage guys are out there. But I think it's going to be really important that defensively that the Chiefs are spying on Joe Burrow. I know that he's not a guy that when you look at him, he's going to run for 150 yards or anything ridiculous. But I'll tell you what, when he scrambles and gets away, that's when it could hurt. And the last thing that I want to see happen is the Chiefs are perfect in coverage and there's just a giant hole in the middle of the field for him to just walk for a first down. That's what killed him last year. It's what hurt him in the first game this year. They have to make sure that they're on Joe Burrow to an extent. I understand you can't spy on him all the time, but just make sure that he can't crack off some big runs.
Yeah, and that's also going to be on the defensive line too to make sure he's not getting out of the pocket because he's not. I mean, he has enough mobility to scare you, but he's not like this running quarterback. He's not Josh Allen. So, yeah, defensive line. Like I cannot stress enough how big of a game this is for the defensive line.
It's really a big game for the defense entirely.
Yeah, because they got punked last time.
They did. They got in both games, man. It wasn't even just the AFC Championship game. It was earlier this year too. I know the stats might have shown that they weren't so bad. If you watch the game, it's just, man, they had a hard time getting off the field. And it's important that you can get off the field and let Patrick Mahomes have that ball.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm looking up the regular season game right now because I also believe the stats for the Chiefs in that game were not here. Let me look. Yeah. Okay. So the Chiefs gave up 431 total yards of offense to the Bengals in the last matchup. The Bengals passed for almost 300 yards. They rushed for 150 yards. They were averaging 6.5 yards per play. But here's the thing. Kansas City Chiefs also averaged 6.5 yards per play. They rushed for slightly less yards. They had 349 yards of total offense. The problem, though, that Travis Kelce fumble, that turnover killed them. I firmly believe they were going to win that game, if Travis Kelce didn't fumble.
Yeah, just you can't have that. That X factor for offense. We kind of talked about the defense and forcing pressure. X factor for the offense, bigger than any player. It's just taking care of the football. It's easier said than done, but that's going to make or break this game.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I got, though. I will say real quick, though, before we end, one more X factor, special teams. Do not embarrass us.
They might be the biggest X factor because you can't be fumbling the punt or miffing kickoffs like that. That could come back to bite us, and maybe Chris Lamons will get his revenge. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you have anything else, though?
No, I think that we talked about a lot, and I think that the X factors, there really isn't a bad pick on either side. It's just going to be who steps up, and hopefully someone does step up.
Yep, I agree. So, guys, that's all we got. Make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. But before we close it out, Michael, where can the fans find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube. That's just at KC Sports Report. Twitter and Instagram. Twitter is at KC Sports Report, and Instagram is KC_Sports Report. And the website is kcsportsreport.com.
Yep, make sure you guys check that out. Michael's been writing a lot lately, so go check out what he's got at kcsportsreport.com. That's all we got for today. Signing off. We'll see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs.